Hi everyone. In today's episode, we're going to look at not as good as famous authors, why that shouldn't stop you from writing. And I have to say this most of the times for beginners like me too. When you read the works of these literary giants, you read their books, their poems, and you stand for a while and you look at these works and you're like, how can somebody be so good? Like you begin to wonder, like, wow. And then sometimes you look at your work and like, wow, wow, wow. You just keep saying, wow, wow. How can somebody be this good and someone else be this terrible at writing? Huh? Ah, you look at the works and you see how absolutely well they tell the story. The lines flow into each other. It sounds like poetry, even though it's prose, and the stories keep you hooked, and it's moving on and on and on. And you begin to wonder, how are they so good at telling this story, right? But then one way you could say, wow, if they can do it, I too can do it. Like that's one approach you could use towards it. It's like, oh, if they can do it, I absolutely can do it too. After all, they're humans too. They didn't always have it figured out. They had to work and do it, do a couple of things, and now this is what they've done, right? And then the other way goes like, there's absolutely no way I can do it. Like instead of being inspired by the mastery, by the excellence of these people, that wow, if these people are human, if humans can attain such level of excellence, I too can attain such levels of excellence if I do the right things. I don't know what the right things are, but if I do the right things, okay, you could either get inspired by it or you could get intimidated by it and say, wow, there's really no hope. I can really not amount to anything. I can really not do anything. But the first thing is this. Oftentimes we have taken okay, how do I explain this now? We have taken the process and we've made the process, we swap the process of instead of the craft itself of the work of writing. We make it become the result. So we're like, okay, I need to write a best-selling work. I need to write a work that's absolutely awesome. But here's the thing: most of these authors, it's not like they sat down and write and say, I want to write an absolutely awesome work. No, they sat down and they write something. They put in their energy and everything to do all the extraordinary and all the ordinary, and they write it, and their work amounts to something awesome, and people love it. And some of them, they even got rejected, and their work got accepted, and they're like, wow, this is awesome, good, best writer we've ever seen. This is absolutely fantastic, great, awesome. But here's the problem: what makes you a writer is the fact that you write, not the fact that your work is read by millions of people. Which, if your work is read by millions of people, is a very good thing. I'm not going to sit down here and start saying, oh, your work is read by millions of people, it's not really important. It is. So ultimately, we want to share our work with the world, right? But ultimately, what makes you a writer is the fact that you write. And I keep saying is that nobody can stop you from being a writer. Like nobody. Like they could stop you from being a published writer. They can stop you from being, what other adjectives? A popular writer. They can stop you from being a best-selling writer. They can stop you from being an award-winning writer. But nobody can stop you from being a writer, because in order to write, it is in your power, because you just write. Like you don't need permission, because oftentimes we need permission, like, and we need assurance that, okay, if I do this thing, would I get good? I don't know. I think what's the fun in knowing that, like, for sure? I think we have to figure it out. We have to find that. Like, is this thing important enough that we'll do it irrespective of the fact that our work will be so good, like as other authors too, like that. And one of the things I've noticed is the case of Emily Dickinson. Most of our work, I didn't think all our work, so I can't remember if it's most of our work or all our works, was published posthumously, which means it was published after she died, right? And I'm like, the question I want us to put in mind is that once we start writing, which I guess you probably have done already, you want to make sure that every month, every quarter, every 6 months, you are improving. Like you are improving, you are improving, you are improving, you're improving your storytelling skills, your artistic expression, how you put words together. It's improving over time, over time, over time. Now it's going to take everybody different amount of time, but over time, you want to be the best version of yourself, right? And you want to tell that into a story. Now, nobody has a guarantee that you're going to amount to anything, right? But that itself shouldn't discourage you. You have your own story, you have your own unique voice, and nobody can ask that. That's you, right? And the writing space is not a competitive space per se. It's not a competition. You have your story to tell. Tell your story. Don't allow, like, don't think of it this way. Mastery is supposed to, like, it said, it is in shining our light that we give permission unconsciously to others to shine theirs too. Like if you see people that shine their light, like you should be happy to shine yours too. Not say of that light, my light cannot be as bright as theirs. What's the use of shining mine too? Right? Now when I put it this way, you're like, oh no, dude, that's absolutely terrible. I shouldn't be doing that. But most of the time that's what we do. That's what I do. I'm like, okay, these writers are so good. I can't really get good as them. And I'm like, is writing a learnable skill? Yes. It's not something you have to inherit. You have to pass with genes on any of those things. So I'm like, okay. If it's a learnable skill, then I can learn it. Yeah. Basically, that's it. And so one thing we have to keep in mind is that these authors, they didn't start as good, quote unquote good. Over time they read and they wrote and they improved and got to the level at which they wrote. So a couple of things we need to say is that famous authors weren't always famous or skilled. They started from somewhere. There was a time where nobody knew them. Nobody had an idea who they were. Okay. Now another thing you also need to know is that every writer has a unique voice and perspective, including you. You have a unique voice and perspective. Your story is uniquely you. Like it's you. The combinations are just you. You're different. You have your own story. So nobody has that. Writing quality is subjective and evolves over time, right? Yeah, it evolves over time. You need to start writing, such that you improve over time, such that you put yourself as the yardstick that I am 100 times better than what I was last 2 years. And that for me is great improvement. And then you next one, like 1,000x better. And that for me is great improvement. Now, of course, we look at people to see what is possible, right? And then from that, what is possible, we can spring forth to create ours too. Their light should not cause us to off our light. Instead, it should encourage us to shine our own light too, right? That is what seeing literary giants should do. It should inspire us to say, wow, I can do it too. I know oftentimes we see some literary giants that what they've done is they've done such Herculean tasks that we look and we're like, this isn't for me. But if it were easy, everyone would do it. Just put that in mind. Okay, the next thing, what are the practical advice I have for you? The first one is focus on developing your own unique voice. And in the recent episode, I talked about how to develop your unique writing voice. And I think it's look at all the writers, copy their style, and see, improve and practice. Over time, you create something that is uniquely yours, right? And then the next thing is you want to set realistic goals based on your skill level, right? For you now, your level might be just write a number of words of poems, right? That's your skill, your skill level. So over time, you want to improve, right? And in improving, you test it. Oftentimes, there are certain things that are as hard as they are because you do not yet know how to do them. Now, of course, I'm not going to say that. Of course, you have to put in energy and effort, but oftentimes, certain tasks as hard as they are because we don't know what we are doing, right? Now, of course, there are works that are hard, but it becomes easier when you know what you are doing, right? Even if the quote unquote is still hard work, but at least you know what you are doing. You're not being tortured like I don't even know what I'm doing right here, right now. So you know what you're doing, and that itself it makes the work easier in a way. Of course, you have to put in effort and time and energy. So next thing we want to do is we want to study famous authors for inspiration, not comparison. Comparison is the tip of joy. Comparison is the tip of joy. So you want to look at them, get inspiration, see what's possible, and then write and improve and emulate. And over time, you get your unique voice. You get what makes you really, really you and original. Even though your voice is a combination of 1,000 different voices of different writers combined together. Okay, so we want to embrace the learning process and celebrate small wins, right? Every small progress you make, you want to celebrate it. The goal is to keep moving. The goal is to keep making progress. That's the goal. We don't want to stay stagnant. We don't want to stop writing. We don't want to leave writing itself. We want to always show up. We want to consistently be doing the writing task itself. That's the goal, right? So as long as we're showing up, as long as we're doing the task, we're making progress, and that itself is a win. And I don't really know what you're saying, but that is a win for me. Okay, so what as Neil Gaiman once said, the one thing that you have that nobody else has is you, your voice, your mind, your story, your vision, and no one else has that. And I think the Maya Angelou, it's Maya Angelou, that there's this agony of having a story that you could have told, but it's just inside you. And every time you see an author, I think most of the times when we see literary giants, in a way, is that when we see them, because we're not writing, because we're not doing the work because we have been discouraged. Each time we see them, we're reminded of what we could have been doing with our lives, right? And so that itself makes us have this bad feeling. It's not because of them, right? It has nothing to do with them. It's more like a personal stuff, right? Yeah, it's that reminder. It's more like how do I explain this? If, for example, let's say a mother has a son and that son has an age mate, right? Like they were very close and they almost looked alike, right? And let's say that son was to kick the bucket, die, right? And that age mate that looks like was very close to the son and like looks like him. Anytime the woman, the mother sees that boy, she will be reminded of her son and she would feel really, really sad, especially when the boy is helping his mother. The woman like, if my son was around now, he would be helping me out. I would be talking to him. I'll be nagging. I'll be disturbing him. And the feeling has nothing to do with that boy, right? It's a reminder that, and it's a sad thing. So oftentimes the reason why we ask this question, I'm not as good as famous authors, is that we're sure want to see people that before we've started writing, even before they even thought of writing, and then they started writing and they are so good at it. And we're like, okay, if I had put in so much effort and all that, I would have made so much progress. And so when we see them, we're like, we're reminded of our laziness, our negligence, and our lackadaisical, our careless attitude towards the task itself. Not because we say that we do not, not because we say that, this thing is not important to me. It's because our actions say otherwise. And so each time we see these people that are succeeding, that are excelling in this stuff, we feel really, really bad. We feel discouraged because they remind us of what we could be doing with our life. And I feel that it is not meant to discourage us. It is a sign. It is a reminder of what we want to genuinely do. Hi, my name is Oyemichino Akonam, and I am your host at Build Writing Podcast. This series that I'm doing, which we'll go over the next 30 days, is a series that attempts to bust writing excuses that I have. And this is me sharing my thoughts out loud. If you got value from this episode, I'd love you follow or whatever platform you're listening on. And if you would love to follow along my journey, you can go to buildwriting.com/newsletter and click on and subscribe. That way you get updates on the things I'm trying and attempting. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time. I remember your listener challenge. So your writing challenge for today is to write a short piece inspired by a famous author. Yeah. You could write a poem in response to someone's a famous author's poem. You could just get inspiration from an author's work. Okay, write a paragraph in the style of a favorite author, then rewrite it in your own voice. Yeah, just try it and see where it leads to. Until next time, keep writing.